Cleveland! This is for you!
Here we go, Brownies. Here we go. Here we go, Brownies. Here we go. Yeah, this for my dogs from the east to the west side. You rockin' brown and orange with me, baby. Let's ride. Represent the land, let them know. Tell them, here we go, Brownies. Here we go. Yeah, here we go.
Welcome in, everybody, to a game day edition, a Browns victory edition of the podcast. This is the Here We Go Brownies podcast. I'm Allie Heisong, coming at you live from Boone, North Carolina. This time around, joined with me as always out in beautiful Boise, Idaho. Dustin, how you feeling? I'm feeling everything right now. I'm feeling crazy.
Allie, I'm feeling all kinds of emotion. I know this is a PG-13 show, but I did some extracurricular shots with my Browns backers because I got to tell you, there are wins and then there are wins. And this is what I would call a win. It's way different. This was a team win. This was big for the fan base. This was big for this football and this franchise. And to do this on the road in Baltimore after being down 14 points, you could not have scripted this differently. I would have said, no, they're not going to win this game. But the way the Browns turned the corner late in the second quarter and then flipped the entire script in the second half of this game is something I have not seen in a long, long time as a Browns fan. And I got to tell you, it felt good. It felt like what other playoff caliber great franchises do to get a win is what it felt like. I felt like I was watching the Chiefs today. I was watching those other great teams that get down but find a way to win. That's what I saw today. And by the way, did it against a great team, by the way, that most people had arguably ranked ahead of the Chiefs in the power rankings last week, just because of what they're doing. And I got to tell you, this was a great win for this franchise. It was a great win for the fans. And to do it on the road, it's even crazier in my opinion. But Allie, take it away.
So you Browns come away with a 33-31 win over the Baltimore Ravens. And I'm sure that I speak for all Browns fans in saying that was the most roller coaster ride of a football game that we have seen in a while.
Yes.
But it was funny. So I'm sitting there with David, and, he is now a Browns fan because of me, but, hadn't been before. And,
but still a Lions fan though, right? He's still a Lions fan?
But now roots for the Browns, and we're sitting there, and it was funny to see him get fired up at some of the calls, and just the missed extra point. And I was so like, welcome to being a Browns fan. Like, I'm so sorry.
Hey, sit down.
Welcome to being a Browns fan. This is the way it goes, and I'm sorry that you're stuck with this. But then the pure joy that came once Dustin Hopkins came back out there for the game-winning field goal. Talk about redemption. But we talk about the first half of this game, and it was bad. It was bad. The Browns found every reason to lose this game. And we have talked at length at this podcast, Dustin, and saying, the Browns just need to find ways to win. They need to stack wins. That's what good teams do. They haven't been able to do it. Well, let me eat my words, because goodness, they did it in a very convincing way in the second half. I would say the first half of this football game versus the second half of this football game were two entirely different Browns teams. The second half, you come out with a banged up Deshaun Watson, but he's still has perfect completion in the second half. I think it was 14 of 14 in the second half.
Crazy
Insane.
Numbers.
Finding ways to get outside of the pocket, creating plays with his feet, and just making good decisions overall. I think there was that I was like, okay, I don't know what that was, but most of the time was making some good reads, good throws, good decisions, and was the reason, that the Browns were in this until the very end. And then Dustin Hopkins comes out and has a redemption kick to win the game. But you do it against in my opinion, a potential Super Bowl caliber team in Baltimore. I think that this Baltimore team, and I want to give them credit, which makes me want to vomit, but I want to give them credit here. This season, they are much, much, much better than I think any of us thought that they were going to be. And this may be one of the better versions of the Baltimore Ravens with Lamar Jackson that we've seen. This is a really, really good football team. And for the Browns to be able to bounce back after a ton of adversity, injuries, just shooting themselves in the foot, to be able to come back and win this game, I think speaks a lot to just the group that they have.
Well, and even more than that, to just double down on that a little bit, the fact that the Browns in this football game just found ways to extend plays, like you said. Here you have a shuffled up offensive line, right? That
Right.
was constantly putting pressure on Deshaun all day long. I mean, all day from the first play all the way to the very end. I mean, there was constant pressure on him where he was having to shed off guys, run, make plays with his feet, extend plays. Like he just, and I actually got to watch a little bit of Stefanski's uh, presser before this game. And he said at halftime, Deshaun walked up to me and says, I am not coming out of this football game. Like he knew, like we were in this. It was an opportunity to win this football game. And for him to come out and play perfect football in the second half,
Yeah.
I think this looks very well going into next week. And I think there are games and seasons that define your season. This game today defined the Cleveland Browns season for the rest of the year because they went from a
Yeah.
45% chance of making the playoffs to 75. And now as we look ahead, by the way, Bengals lose today. And the Browns already got a win against the Bengals. And now we've beat the Ravens. This is a team now, because of this win, is a potential to win the division, something we
Correct.
haven't talked about in this city for 30 years. Like this game was so ever changing for the rest of the season. We'll look back at this game and go, because of that game, the Browns are right here in the future. And I think that is what is huge.
That's a really good point. And at this time last year, when we were talking about the ifs, if the Browns could have done this, they would have been here, right? If they would have won that Jets game, you're in it.
Yep.
Hopefully, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, at this point this season, we can say, hey, the Browns are in this position because of that win over Baltimore. The Browns
Right.
are in this position because they found a way to beat the Bengals week 1. Kind of being able to turn the tide a little bit, if you will,
Right.
And getting into more of a winning mentality. And I know as Browns fans, that's something that we're not used to. I mean, go on Twitter right now. Go on Twitter at halftime, and it was ugly. It was an ugly thing. But learning how to win, not only the Browns learning how to win, but as fans too. I think that's something new to us, and we got to get used to it. Hopefully,
Well,
that's the goal.
This was probably the biggest team win I've seen the Browns have in years. I mean,
Yeah, I agree.
the defense and the offense willed themselves to win this football game, right? I mean, we all could say, is it Pionchu the second when he muffed that kickoff return and gave Baltimore the ball on the 15-yard line? I was like, well, that was so Browns. There it is. And they just galvanized, and everybody got around him and go, we'll live for another game. They weren't going to be denied today. And this team, at multiple points in this game, had that look in their eye like they weren't going to be denied. Like they were going to find a way to win this football game. And that's what I thought was so inspirational about watching this game from, okay, that kid made a great play, knocked the ball down, made a pick six early in this game. But then Greg Newsom makes a great play on the other end of that to kind of even the tide in this game. And I got to tell you, Ollie, going into this football game, if somebody told me the final score was going to be 33-31, I'd have been, no, there's not going to be 64 points scored in this football game because you got the number 1 and the number 2 defense going up against each other, and it's going to be a dogfight. Well, it was a dogfight, but both of these teams found ways to score. And it was just interesting. It was like it just seemed like a battle of royale for this entire football game, and it was a game of will. I think in this game,
Yeah.
There was a game of will in this game, like who was going to blink first or who was going to bend or break. And because you saw it, even when the Browns were down 14, you're like, okay, all of a sudden it was 14-3, and then it was 14-6, and then it was 17-9, and you were like, okay, they're in this, right? It's a one possession game. And I was like, they just kind of clawed their way back into this football game. And I just watched it and said, this is unbelievable. Like I have not seen this from this team before where they willed themselves into this game. And I got to say, from a fan's perspective, you should be proud of your Cleveland Browns. And this is going to bode well for them for the rest of the season. Cause now we are at that halfway point in the season now. And, we now can look ahead and say, okay, you know what? There's some wins that are on our schedule. And if we just play fundamental football, we can win this game.
Yeah.
And I just go ahead.
No,
I was
go
just
ahead.
going to say one thing in this game that made me so happy, and it's funny that Stefanski brought it up too, that he said was kind of the changing point in this game when all 11 players were pushing Kareem Hunt down the field for an extra 10 yards, I'm like, they're going to win this football game. Look at that. Right there,
Mhm.
that entire team is willing to win this football game. And I just want to say that I knew we were going to win the game when I saw that because everybody wanted to win this game. Everybody.
Yeah, for sure. I want to talk about just their response to some of the adversity. You talk about James Prochet, the muffed return, and how devastating that was at the time. But what happened was when he went to the sidelines, you saw his teammates coming up, rallying him, lifting him back up, chin up. It's going to be okay. Same with Dustin Hopkins. He misses the extra
Yep.
point. The first players to get to Dustin Hopkins is the defense. And I thought that that was remarkable, actually. And I had just got done saying, man, I bet that's got to be deflating, for Miles to go out there and be an absolute beast in the way that he was today, and to get a huge stop there. And then, with
Yeah.
what went on, it really sucks. But the first players there
With
were
the
the
defense.
defense. And
Yeah.
I thought to myself, well, that speaks to the culture and that speaks to the buy-in
Yes.
within the organization.
Correct.
These players have bought into themselves. And that's frankly, Dustin, I don't know that we've ever seen that. Not really in my lifetime, that a team knows that they can win. They know that they're more talented. They know they can overcome the adversity, the calls, the penalties, the injuries. They can find a way, and it's the next man up. But to see that play out in the way that it did today, man, that's so refreshing. And really, this is one of the most exciting wins, Browns wins since the playoff run. I mean, this is one of those
Yeah.
games where they overcome so much adversity and just go out there and somehow find a way to do it. It's a really fun day to be a Browns fan.
Well, Allie, think about this. We talk about how teams like the Ravens with injuries and adversity find ways to win.
Yeah.
Here you have a Ravens team that was completely healthy coming into this football team or this game, and a Browns team that was banged up. And it was that next man up mentality that they had to go out and perform. And to think about that we did this without, our starting left tackle in, right?
Mhm.
Dewan Jones out of this game, Nick Chubb out of this football game. I mean, if you think about all the adversity this team has seen this year, I don't think I would have said the Browns would win the division or have a chance against Baltimore on the road. But I mean, to look at the game that I went to, like
Yeah.
now I feel like I should have went to Baltimore. But the game that I went to in Cleveland where the Browns, and clearly DTR was just not prepared and ready to
Right. That
take
was
on
just a
that
weird
defense.
situation.
Well, I mean, just that's a lot to throw at a kid that's never started an NFL game in his life. But
Yeah.
to see the polar opposite of that and be in a game on the road just speaks to where this team has grown over the last 3 or 4 weeks and where they've come as a team. Because there's a couple games this year that I think we could say we could have won and we could be a 1 or 2 loss team. This
Right.
team is really good. This defense is as good as we thought they were. They are consistently staying good. And this is a team that because of that defense, and if the offense plays like they did in the second half of this football game, they're going to be in a lot of football games going forward. And this is going to
Mhm.
be a very exciting football team to watch because guess what? You have to win in November to play in December and win in January. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what the Cleveland Browns are now doing. And they're now finding their identity. And you can tell it's starting to click and they're really starting
It's
to
the
come
right
together.
time to hit your stride. It is the
Right.
right time to hit your stride. Before we get into game balls and going through some of the stats on this game, just a couple of words from some of our sponsors here. Whether it is sophisticated suburban living, luxury downtown digs, or senior housing, K&D, the largest property management company in Northeast Ohio, has the perfect home for everyone. Find your dream home at K&D. Visit knd.com to get started. That's the letter K, the word and, the letter D.com. Also, while you're in the area, head on over, get your hands on the best pizza in all of Northeast Ohio. So head on over to Lakewood, stop into Angelo's Pizza. They do double layer toppings. It's great at home, in the restaurant, even just as great the next day. And Dustin, real quick, why don't you tell our listeners quickly about Cleveland whiskey?
Well, if you don't have Cleveland whiskey, ask for it at your local establishments in Ohio or go to clevelandwhiskey.com and look at all the different flavors they have. They have the Christmas spiced whiskey, which is amazing. It's limited edition. Or actually go to your local liquor stores and get that wonderful stuff, the Magic Rabbit, the Underground, great flavors. But man, what a celebratory. It's time to, pick up that glass, have a shot, and enjoy some Cleveland whiskey. Because guess what, Cleveland fans, we earned this win, and it was a hard-fought win.
So let's talk about how they got there. Let's go through the stats, and this is brought to you from our friends over at Cleveland Furniture Company.
From the Couch is brought to you by the Cleveland Furniture Company.
All right, let's get into it. Offensively, Deshaun Watson, 44 for 213, one touchdown and one interception. He was sacked 4 times on the day with a rating of 74.8. But one thing I want to talk about is the difference between the first half and the second half. First half, he was 6 of 20 for 79 and a pick 6. In the second half, he was 14 of 15 for 134. I mean, 2 totally different games offensively. PJ Walker did come in at the very end. We'll talk about that in a minute. Instead of them kicking it to close the first half, but he was over 1 on the day. Rushing, I thought that the Browns had a great day rushing the ball, especially in the second half. I thought that they really controlled the line of scrimmage, even having 2 of their teams out, by the way. So shout out to this offensive line and what they were able to do today in creating holes and gaps for this rushing attack. Jerome Ford on the day, 17 for 107, averaging 6.3 a pop. Kareem Hunt, 10 for 32 with 1 touchdown. Deshaun Watson also running the ball today, 8 carries for 37 yards. So really was able to move the ball pretty easily against this Baltimore defense. But let's talk about the pass catchers. I thought that the receiving the receiving numbers don't really paint the picture for the passing attack for this Cleveland Browns, especially in the second half. I thought that it looked a lot better than what these numbers will show. On Amari Cooper, I mean, he had 6 receptions on the day for 98 yards. I mean, that's he is playing the best of his career. David Njoku, they force-fed him the ball a little bit, 6 for 58. He had some big boy runs after the catch in this game. Elijah Moore, love the way they used him today. I really did. 5 receptions for 44 yards, 1 touchdown, his first on the season. He was able not only to create separation and get open, but after the catch, the way that he was able to put a move on the defender and gain yards after the catch was a lot of fun to see. And then, of course, we know that James Prochet, he had a fumble, muffed return there. And then Deshaun Watson also. So there you have it. Those are the offensive numbers. Turning it over to the defense and what they allowed Baltimore to do. I thought that they did a pretty decent job containing Lamar Jackson, Dustin. I thought the way that Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah played in response to Lamar Jackson's shiftiness, vision, he was all over him, especially with the read option. I was very pleased with that. They held him 13 of 23 passing. 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. He was sacked 3 times on the day. Talk about just an elusive guy. I thought our defensive line was able to create a ton of pressure. They just couldn't get home because he's ridiculous. I mean, he's a ridiculous athlete. The rushing attack, Lamar Jackson, 8 carries for 41. Keaton Mitchell, man, what a quick and shifty guy he is. 3 for 34, 1 touchdown. Gus Edwards, 11 for 24, 1 touchdown. And Justice Hill, 2 for 7. And again, we've talked about last week, the pass catchers, how none of them really scare us.
Right.
And I think that was on display in the second half. Zay Flowers, who's a very good pass catcher, he was 5 for 73. Mark Andrews only had two catches on the day, 44 yards. And then Odell Beckham Jr., 1 for 40 and 1 touchdown. So overall, I thought that those numbers aren't going to paint the picture of the 2 different games essentially in the first and second half, because I think that they were vastly, vastly different, especially offensively for your Cleveland Browns. Excuse me.
Yeah, and a couple things that I saw in this game, Allie, that made me happy is we saw more of Cedric Tillman in this football game. We saw him out there drawing. The defense had to be honest against him, and then there are little microcosms in this football game that I think were important, like Wyatt Teller falling on the ball when Deshaun got it stripped to be able to keep that possession alive. Like little things like that in this football game that could have been disastrous the other way around. But the Browns just found ways to just kind of keep their eye in the game and just, deflections and things, just their defense just played really tight when they needed to. And I don't know where it happened late in the second quarter, but they really started to figure out Lamar Jackson in this football game and really keep him disruptive and kind of make him uncomfortable. And we know this, Allie, when you make Lamar Jackson uncomfortable and make him throw the ball more, he creates turnovers for you and makes
Yeah.
opportune things. The Steelers did this to the Browns, or the Steelers did this to the Ravens earlier this year, and just makes Lamar get uncomfortable in that pocket. And we did that and kept him in check as this game went on. And you could tell he was frustrated. He was just frustrated in this game. Oh, you did want to mention real quick about PJ Walker coming out,
Yep.
about that. I did listen to Stefanski talk about that, and he said they had their kickoff returner down there under um, the uprights, and he did not feel comfortable in that situation if it was a missed
Mhm.
field goal to, and I get it if you
I
don't
get
feel
it.
like it's. I get it, because I've seen that, by the way, happen, and it's disastrous if you miss that field goal. I've seen
For
those.
sure. So at first, when we watch that to the naked eye, you look at that and you say, "What are we doing? Like, why aren't we taking the points here?" Not that they were guaranteed, right? That was going to be
Right.
a 60 yarder, and not that Dustin Hopkins can't do it. But then that Baltimore is getting the ball out of the half. I was a little frustrated at that point before having learned that information, but clearly they didn't like what they saw. I think it's a good coaching decision to prevent a disaster and
Right.
just throw up a Hail Mary, see what you can come down with, because at the end of the day, it is what it is. And had they kicked it and made it, there was still going to be time on the clock for Lamar
Correct.
Jackson. So I at the time, I was a little bit heated. Like, what are we doing? Give him a shot. That's what he's here for. But then, obviously, as the second half played out the way that it did, I certainly calmed down on that.
Well, and I can say I watched a Monday Night Football game where a Browns kicker missed a field goal and ran it back all the way with no time left to win a football game. So
That was against Baltimore, wasn't it?
yes, it was against
It
Baltimore.
was
So
Travis Coons, I think.
yes,
Yes.
and I was like, yeah, now I get it, because that could be disastrous, right? Like that's the last thing you want as a guy running back. And let's just be
Was that
completely honest.
2014?
Yeah, but let's just be completely honest with that game too, or just this game. The special teams were playing well for the Ravens, so it's not beyond a thought that they couldn't get down the field,
Sure.
right, and get field position or something like that. So I was like, you know what? Sometimes you have to just feel the game. By the way, there were people in the room, Allie, and I disagreed with them. But when the Browns chose to go for the 2-point conversion, I'm like, you've got the momentum, go for it now, so you don't have to
No, that
worry
was
about it.
definitely the right call. That was
Yeah,
definitely the right call. And I saw some people moaning and groaning on Facebook and Twitter about why would you do that? But at some point you were going to have to go for two, whether
right.
it was there or
Later,
assuming you
yeah,
get the ball back.
yeah,
You're going to have to go for it. I understand riding the wave of momentum there,
right.
going for two. I absolutely think that was the right call.
Because you had the
Rather
momentum,
than
right? You had the
you
momentum. Yeah,
you're gonna need to go for two either now or then. Just go for it now. That way you have time left to adjust and make other decisions. So I definitely and certainly agree with that.
yeah.
Dustin, before we get into game balls, why don't you tell our listeners about Barley House?
So, guys, if you haven't been to Barley House in Cleveland down there on 6, go check them out. By the way, here's the really cool thing, guys. Anybody watching here, if you go to our Instagram page, Here We Go Brownies Live, and give us a follow over there, you can get a $30 gift card. And we're doing that every week, by the way. So get in. We're going to give away a winner probably Monday or Tuesday to start that. But get a $30 gift card. Follow us over there on Here We Go Brownies Live on Instagram.
There you go. There you have it. So before we get into it, I just looked over. We're in a hotel. We're in Boone, North Carolina. So we've got the dogs here with us, and I was a little nervous how doing a show is going to go with just dogs in the hotel room.
Cats, dogs.
Look at how Birdie's sleeping.
Oh my gosh. Well,
Are
you know
you
what,
kidding me?
So Bert, you know what Birdie's saying? I'm so exhausted from watching that Browns game. I'm ready to, yeah. But you know what
He's
though?
ridiculous.
At least she doesn't have her squeaky toy, right? Or
No, it
giving
could be.
her-
It could certainly be worse. So I apologize if they do wake up momentarily and they create a terror. But nonetheless, they're being good right now. Okay, let's get into game balls, and our game balls are brought to you by our friends over at Circle
Browns
K.
fans, get ready for a sizzling sensation that's about to heat up your taste buds. Circle K is bringing you a hot deal this football season. Introducing Circle K's Hot Chicken Wings. And the best part, the price is as hot as the wings themselves. Pick up 6 wings for just $5.99 at your local Circle K today. So what are you waiting for? Gather your friends, your family, and anyone else who craves the ultimate wing experience. Circle K, where every deal is hotter than ever before. Here we go, Brownies. Only at Circle K.
All right, let's get into it. Dustin, let's start with the offensive side of the ball. I'll turn it over to you. Who's your game ball going to?
I got to be the game ball has to go to Deshaun Watson for
Sure.
me in this football game. And the reason is a tale of two halves. And for me, here's a guy that was pressured completely all day long, never threw in the towel. And the fact that he was out there limping, he clearly has an ankle injury, and just gritting this football game out against a superb defense, I have to give it to him because he flipped the script and kept the Browns from this game and winning the game. And
Yeah.
I just have to give my game ball to him on the offensive side. I could give it to Amari, but Amari's seeming to have a great game every week. But to see what Deshaun did in a game against arguably the best defense in the National Football League, period. I mean, for him to be able to do that against, and that's why we paid him to be our quarterback, to do what he did today against a great defense. So I have to give it to Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, no, he's the clear and obvious one to give it to here. And again, the first half of this football game was rough, and I can't believe that. If you would have said the first at halftime, hey, you're going to give a offensive game ball to Deshaun Watson, I would have said, there's no way. I don't know how we're going to get there. But nonetheless, we did. So I agree with you. I think that he's probably the obvious choice here. But, obviously for the sake of podcasting, I'll go in a separate direction. Just to give a couple of shout outs. I thought that Kareem Hunt was great. Given what you're asking him to do. We know who he is as a player, and I think that the Browns are using him in a very unique and just in a positive way. I like the efficiency that they're getting out of Kareem Hunt. Amari Cooper, he was 6 for 98. But I'm actually thinking I'm going to go with Elijah Moore here. Now, while his numbers aren't, probably the sexiest on the box score, I thought that the way that he played today was just so reflective of the talent that he has and being able to maximize and optimize that and get the most out of him as a player, because we haven't seen that yet. And him lining up as a true receiver, I thought, and again, the box score is not going to reflect this, but just his elusive and dynamic playmaking ability with the yards after the catch and even creating separation prior to, I'd like to give it to him. He's 5 for 44, 1 touchdown. Another consideration I'd have here is the interior of the offensive line. I thought that they played great.
Oh, yeah.
Ethan Posick, Wyatt Teller and Joel Bitonio. I mean, those are your reliable guys. Having your 2 tackles out, the offensive line was not a huge issue today. There's a couple penalties you'd like to have back, of course, but especially the interior of this offensive line stepping up and creating these running lanes for your rushing attack. I thought that there was a lot of just really good offensive football in the second half of this game, but that's probably the direction I would go with. Defensively, what you got?
Defensively, I'm going to go. He played great all day. I'm going to go Greg Newsome. And I'm going to go just Greg Newsome just looked inspired in this football game. He was going around firing other guys up in this football game. So for me, I'm going to go Greg Newsome because I think at that point in the game where the Browns were in a situation where they really needed to flip the script, Greg Newsome came up big, scored that touchdown, got that interception, and really the momentum really shifted in the game from that point on to where, okay, these Browns are back in it. They got the momentum and they're running with this. So I have to give it to Greg Newsome. He just played really good football down the stretch there.
I agree. I'm going to go with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. I thought that the way that they used him today to kind of spy and shadow Lamar Jackson was next level. I mean, his speed is unreal. The way he's able to diagnose a play before it even happens is just really refreshing to see and nice to see him, stepping up into this role at the linebacker position. Hang on. Of course, it's happening where I've got ESPN pulled up and it's playing in my ear. That drives me nuts. But I'm going with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. He had 7 total tackles on the day, 4 solo, half a sack, alongside with Myles Garrett, then 2 tackles for losses today. But again, the box score is not necessarily going to paint the picture or reflect the play that they had on the defensive side of the ball.
True.
But being able to stop and stuff the run for a good part of this game and stop Lamar Jackson ultimately, being able to diagnose those option plays was so beneficial and really part of the reason that we come away with a win in this game.
Yeah.
All right, let's go special teams here too. I know that we could go in a couple of different directions. I think I'll start. I think the obvious one here is Dustin Hopkins, right? Like you've got to give it to him. So I will go with him. Even though he did miss the extra point, he was 4 for 4 for field goals, 1 for 2 in extra points. That was his first missed extra point on the season. His longest on the day was 40 yards. I mean, he's reliable. You know that you can roll him out there to go win the game for you. I mean, if this would have been a year ago, Dustin, and you're trotting out there with Cade York and not trying to throw any shade at him, but the feeling that I had rolling out with Dustin Hopkins versus where we were maybe a year ago, while I was nervous and standing up on the couch, I was a little bit more settled than what I would have been last year.
Yeah, and for me, it's Dustin Hopkins. And for me, Dustin Hopkins has been so consistent this season. And I don't know if I'm shocked or surprised. Here's a guy, I mean, he's a veteran, right? He's been in the league 10 years. But here's a guy that came into this franchise being picked up, and being brought in from San Diego and not knowing what we were going to see of him. And then for him to become so comfortable so quickly with this organization. And he even and what I like about him, he goes, I'm not going to make all the kicks, but I can tell you I'm going to practice really hard on my game and get better every week and always be consistent in my game, I think is refreshing, right? Like he's not saying he has to be the hero, but it's just so refreshing to go out there and feel like you can win a game now and not stress out. Now, I will tell if all the people that were in the room today also know I turned my head away from the television when Dustin Hopkins kicked it. I'm like, I'll hear it. I get really nervous when it's a game-winning field goal, because
Well, of course.
and then I saw a flag and I'm like, what's the flag? What's the flag? Right? Like I'm freaking out. What's the flag? Right. But I will tell you, I just felt so good. And here's why I want to give it to Dustin. If you think about it, Ollie, we were down 14-0 in this game. And then it was 14-3. And then it was 14-6. And then it was 17-9. Because of our kicking and because of Dustin Hopkins, he kept us in this game early, right? And if you think about it, if you're the offense over there, like, hey, we haven't gotten in the end zone, but we're getting field goals and we're creeping back into this football game, that's a confidence booster. You got points on the board, right?
Definitely.
You got points on the board. And I think he just and I think that's why you saw things like the defense coming over there like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We'll get it back later, right? And you know what I also said in this football game? When we did miss the extra point, I was like, in one way, it makes it so it doesn't go into overtime. This game cannot go into overtime now, and there's 8 minutes left. There's a lot of football left in this game. Either way, somebody's got to win it, and I was kind of glad we didn't have to go into overtime because to me, an overtime's a crapshoot, right? Because you don't know who can win that game. So I'd rather win it on the field. I close.
Yeah, most definitely. Closed my eyes, and when I heard my husband holler, I knew. I'll tell you what, I was on this couch right here, and next thing I knew, I was like standing up on the back of it. That's just the way that this game goes. Dustin, why don't you tell our listeners about Lorello real quick?
So, guys, if you haven't had Lorello, get yourself some of this Here We Go Brownies wine. Let me tell you about this Here We Go Brownies wine. I actually had it at my tailgate yesterday, and everybody loved the Here We Go Brownies wine at the tailgate. And they're like, where do you get this? I'm like, you can't get it in Idaho, but you can get it in Ohio. But, guys, a few dollars of every bottle of this goes back to the Greater Cleveland Food Bank to feed the needy of Cleveland. But guess what? They've got ice wine. They've got white wine. They've got all the wonderful flavors. You can go out to Geneva, Ohio, and enjoy. And by the way, if you can't make it out to Geneva, go to LorelloVineyards.com and order it and go and enjoy it anywhere you are in Ohio. I think Larry was on earlier. He might still be on, but he was like, I'm beyond myself. I'm speechless. I don't know what to think about this football game. I'm like, I know you're like everybody else. Like nobody had us picked to win. By the way, I put out there, Allie it looks like he just commented, but I put out there for everybody I put a price pack, Allie, right before we went, about an hour before kickoff. And just so you know, you guys that started putting scores in there at the end, I'm not going to take that. I'm going to take the scores that were up till kickoff. But there was like 200 people that commented with a prediction of a score. So it'll take me a little while to get in there and pick a winner, but you'll get a prize pack. But Ali, this game was great. And I want to go back to one quick thing about
Sure.
Kareem Hunt. I feel like he just plays bully ball, if that makes sense.
Uh-huh.
And what I mean by bully ball is he literally goes and just fights for those extra yards, and you can tell the players really respect him as a player. And Ali,
Sure.
to think about this, the fact that he's playing at such a great level right now with the Cleveland Browns, no other team picked him up, Ali. Now think about that. No other team picked him up. He was a free agent that the Browns were literally able to go pluck in, call him out of his house in Cleveland, come down, we need you. We got to do
the
this.
Reason that we are winning football games. And that's
Right.
crazy.
Right.
It's crazy.
And it's crazy that another team, because by the way, there were a lot of other running backs that were picked up as free agents that aren't playing as well as Kareem Hunt is.
I can name several.
Yeah, which and that's what boggles my mind, because I always tell
Yeah.
people Kareem Hunt is a talented player. Is he the same player he was 5 or 6 years ago? No, but he will get you those hard extra yards that you need. And in a goal line, give me Kareem on the goal line stand.
100%. And to that point, Dustin, you mentioned how he's not the same player he was 5 years ago. Well, that's perfectly fine and dandy, because the Browns aren't asking him to be. They're not asking him to be that player. And the way that they're using him is so in line with the skill set he has to offer. Him in third down situations and goal line situations, you want to see him out there every single time. And the reason that you're not seeing somebody like Pierre Strong out there is because he doesn't have the same blocking skills that Kareem Hunt does, and actually not at all. Like that's not what Pierre Strong is.
No.
So they're not asking him to do it. So that's why you're going to see a lot of Kareem in those situations, and frankly, it works. So you really like to see it. Let's go ahead and wrap up with this. Dustin, why don't you tell our listeners about where they can find us in March? Excuse me.
Yeah, guys, March 11th. Join Ali and I as we partake on a great cruise in the Caribbean. Go to brownsfancruise.com to join us with 17 plus alumni with the Browns. It'll be a lot of fun. We'll do stuff from the ship. We'll have a lot of fun activities on the beach, all that. March 11th, guess what? It's cold. You don't want to be in Cleveland in March. You want to be on a ship and enjoying the beach and all those wonderful things, and work on your tan. So when it is May and June in Cleveland, you already got your tan. You're already working on your tan and you're ready to go. But Ali, I got to tell you, I'm a little exhausted after this football game. I felt at one point my chest was doing this. I felt it pounding. I'm like, all right, you know what? I felt like I was watching. I didn't get to watch a lot of the Cardiac Kids, but I felt like this what it must have been like watching the Cardiac Kids. Like literally, this had to be that moment. But guys, get ready for a jam-packed show this Wednesday. We're going to have Jay Crawford, formerly of Cole Pizza and ESPN Sports Center. He's going to be joining us now. He's with WKYC in Cleveland. He has his own show there as well with a couple of folks. And then guess what? The ever animated, the ever popular Leroy Horde will be joining us this Wednesday as well. I'm sure he'll have a lot to say about this football game. And Ali, just we'll get into it. But Ali, it was a fun day to watch NFL football around the league and watch the other games happen as well. Am I correct? Did our boy Josh Dobbs win another game with the Vikings? I believe he did.
I believe so.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun football. We'll get into that to the big show on Wednesday. But everybody go enjoy this. It's Victory Monday. Once again, your Cleveland Browns are 6-3. And boy, oh boy, this one feels real good.
Yeah, it does. This is exciting. Enjoy it. Have a great week. Hopefully, when the Browns lose, it impacts the first half of the week. But when they win, man, I'm celebrating all the way until next Sunday at kickoff. So go enjoy it. Have fun. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate it. Stay safe. Stay healthy. And as always, Browns fans, go Browns.
Go Browns.